All right, all right. Welcome back into the Between the Hash Marks podcast, an NFL Combine extravaganza. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo here in the confines of the home office and joined by my good friend, my colleague, my mentor, and the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone, Mike Tanier, in the shadow of Prime, in the shadow of the JW Marriott, and the heart of Indianapolis for the Combine. Michael, how you doing out there?
I'm doing great. Greetings from the Indiana Convention Center. If I go like this, it's like I'm going to the Improv to do comedy night. But if I go like this, you can see some street behind me. You didn't warn me this was going to be an extravaganza, though. I don't know if I have an extravaganza in me.
Well, the bullshit meter that you published on the Two Deep Zone was extravagant in its own right. And I
Well,
really did
thank you.
enjoy, you cutting through the coach speak and the GM speak to get to what really matters and what the readers are really out for and need to hear and need to read. Great stuff on your part this morning with the BS meter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so of course we have a whole lot on tap. I want to get into everything that emerged yesterday at the Combine, some of the big storylines from the GMs and the coaches. A little bit of housekeeping, though, before we get into it. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check us out on my YouTube channel, which is Matt Lombardo 975. Be sure to subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. You can read me and subscribe to Between the Hash Marks on Substack. And, we do appreciate those 5-star reviews. We have one to read at the end of the show, but those 5-star reviews in the Apple Podcast Store, they really help boost the show, raise us up in the algorithm, make us easier to find, and we truly appreciate them.
Absolutely. Can't wait to hear the review.
It's a good one. I enjoyed it. But, before we get into all that, I do want to get your lay of the land being out there, because this is always – it's my favorite event of the NFL calendar. I think it's the most worthwhile, from finding out what's going on inside the league, not only from the podiums, but you pick up little tidbits walking down the street. You overhear things at St. Elmo's over the famous shrimp cocktail, at the Starbucks in the JW Marriott. It's like Scoop City. What are you hearing, and what's the vibe out there in Indianapolis right now?
There's a lot of scuttlebutt involving the Matthew Stafford situation. And I'm not going to say anyone knows anything for certain, or that anything's even been decided for certain, but there is a little smoke to the fire. This sounds to me sort of like what you might call like a trial separation type of thing, where, like, yeah, you want to go out and look around at what's out there and see if you're happier, and then maybe we can accommodate you, that kind of thing. But like I've heard a couple of rumors around it, and like most of it boils down to, like, it's likely that Stafford stays in Los Angeles. Like a lot of these trial separations where, you go running back to your spouse and you realize, oh yeah, there's not supermodels out there waiting to date me, etc. Like, that's how it's going to go. But that's not 100%. That everyone is interested in exploring this and seeing which way it's going to go. Now, you want to hear the whopper?
Yes, I do. Always hit me with it.
Yeah. Now, this is all reporter on reporter scuttlebutt. It is not like I was talking to Sean McVay, who is not here, or anything like that. But the rumor is one of the reasons why the Rams are willing to do this, besides financial reasons and long-term planning, is that they really, really like Jimmy Garoppolo.
What? I'm sorry. I thought you were going to tell me that they really, really like Shedeur Sanders. They're going to trade up to get the mobility to drop into Sean McVay's offense. Or maybe they think that Sam Darnold can thrive with Sean McVay's system and with those running backs and Kyron Williams. I'm sorry, did you say Jimmy Garoppolo?
I said Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, 5 years ago, when Kyle Shanahan decided he really, really liked Jimmy Garoppolo, you could kind of see where he's coming from. This guy just gotten out of the Patriots system. And like you say, well, he's learned behind Brady, and he's mechanically sound, and he works my system. That was actually 6 years ago. Now you've got this injured, broken down, mid-30s, journeyman, step below journeyman type of guy. But I think some of these offensive-minded head coaches who almost want an extension of them on the field, like they want that, like, sort of like Mary Sue character out there who's just running exactly what they tell him to run. I think that like McVay is seeing a little of that. Maybe that's also a smokescreen. Maybe the person I was speaking to got a bill of sale from somebody who wants to float things out there. But that's one of the weird side topics of this.
I can certainly understand how that feels weird, hearing that sort of thing about Garoppolo, but this whole situation, Mike, feels weird to me. I can't, unless if you're the Rams, unless you're looking at the situation and you're thinking we need to tear this thing down to the studs and rebuild, and the F them picks era, hey, it got us a ring, but at the end of the day, you realize you got to start refilling the cupboard, which they've done really well in the mid rounds the last couple of years. But why would you even be shopping a Matthew Stafford? And from the rest of the league standpoint, I touched on this in the column on Monday morning. It really is a quarterback shortage this year. There aren't that many great quarterbacks. Cam Ward is really the only one in this class where you talk to evaluators and they say he can be a franchise quarterback. Outside of Sam Darnold, you're looking at Jacoby Brissett, you're looking at famous Jameis Winston, you're looking at middling career backup spot starters to fill maybe half a dozen to 10 teams that need quarterbacks. So just from the rest of the league standpoint, I can understand being intrigued and enthralled by getting Matthew Stafford, but why would the Rams even be floating this?
Well, let's to connect the dots a little. I think Stafford's compensation this year is $27 million. That's underpriced for a quarterback of his caliber, that he would probably be about a $40 million quarterback. I don't know the exact number you'd want to use there. He is 37, I believe. So if you try to put an extension together for you, you're extending a 37-year-old quarterback where you might be extending him into those years where suddenly he kind of falls off the table a little bit. And this is a guy who's in his second life, a guy who looked like he was fading and had kind of a second win when his shoulder situation got figured out. So, the Rams are like, well, you seem to want more money. We're not in a position to give you the more money right now. Why don't you go out there, and if we can get our draft picks in exchange for you, and you can get whatever you'd be getting 3 years at, 175 million, whatever that number turns out to be, maybe we can create a mutually beneficial situation. If that happens and it worked for all parties. So again, it's kind of like there's like three parties or whatever. Everyone has to be happy with this. The trade partner, the Rams and Stafford, then it could get done. Otherwise, there's a chance they go back to the table and say, let's just talk about putting a bonus year on your contract, something we can live with to keep you happy and placated. And that's probably the route they're going to end up going. But they're going to explore. Everybody's exploring avenues. Everybody has options. You're right. There's a quarterback shortage, so why doesn't everybody look around and say, hey, maybe 3 first-round picks for Stafford because somebody goes crazy?
Right, exactly. And I know just the team that could go crazy.
Would that be the Giants? Giants?
You see, I hear all this scuttlebutt about the Giants, and I don't think that they're quite ready. I don't know the upside of putting Matthew Stafford behind that offensive line. Yeah. Yes, you have Malik Neighbors. The defense still has a lot of holes. I'm looking at their crazy neighbors. I'm looking at the New York Jets, right?
They don't the money.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn, adult in the room, new era. I really think that they went down the right path trading for Aaron Rodgers. They just chose the wrong guy. That if you get in a veteran, competent quarterback with the kind of leadership that Matthew Stafford has, with his track record, with the ability even at this age, you still have Garrett Wilson over here. You still have two dynamic running backs in the backfield alongside him. The offensive line is getting a little bit better. The defense is built to protect leads. The owner is crazy. The owner is obsessed with going all in whenever he has the chance to go all in and, tossing draft picks and caution into the wind. Why not the New York Jets for Matthew Stafford? I mentioned that as a move that they should make in the 3 offseason moves that they need to make series launching in the last week or two.
I'm not sure how to make the money work. That would be the one sticking point for how do you make the money work where you're going to have a lot of dead money invested in Rodgers, then you're going to put more money. You have to put a big bonus in front of Stafford to woo him. So that's it. When you start looking at when all the sides and the money work, it starts to get very, very tricky. By the way, did you see, as Pro Football Talk just posted the latest Aaron Rodgers rumor?
I can't wait for this. Which unregulated ayahuasca supplement is he going to be endorsing now?
Whichever one that gets him high enough that he personally reached out for the Giants to express interest.
Wow.
Can you imagine him on that team in that stadium again for another year playing behind that line?
What is he thinking? You come out and you say that, oh, they need to want me. They need to have a good roster. I'm sorry, the Giants? You have one receiver. And Wan'Dale Robinson's a nice piece. But the Tyrone Tracy is okay. But that offensive line is still a work in progress like it's been for 15 years.
Right. It is. I can't believe that. I don't know the veracity of this. Again, Mike Florio does talk to a lot of people. He
True.
talks to a lot, especially when we're here. He's got his corner at his restaurant there, etc. But like, that just sounds wacky, and it just sounds like everything Rogers was saying. Well, I need a winner. It's got to be a good fit. He's thinking like, I need a paycheck. I
Yeah.
want another paycheck. I want to do it this way, and I'm going to go out there like and send my own people out to gauge interest. Very, very weird. By the way, I mean, I was
The
talking.
day after Joe Shane says that he's going to take big swings at quarterback, but go
Well,
ahead.
there's your big swing. Now,
Yeah.
I interpreted that to think that he might try to be moving up. And I talked a little bit about the first overall pick in the Titans. You talked a little bit about that as well, right, in your column.
Yeah, just kind of going off of your lay of the land yesterday and reading between the lines of what Mike Morganzi had to say, it feels like they're open for business. And
Yeah.
if you're not going to take Abdul Carter and condemn him to Myles Garrett's career trajectory, elite all-world edge rusher miring in a mediocre roster, if you're
Mhm.
not going to take Cam Ward because you don't love him, load up on draft picks. My thought when I profiled the Titans a couple weeks ago on what to do in their offseason, try to trade back within the top 10, get a first round pick next year, and now you're armed to go up in a stronger draft class to go and get a better franchise quarterback while still getting one of the top prospects in this year's class.
But now, wouldn't you think a Giants be like a logical trade partner for that?
Sure would. Sure would, because the Giants are sitting there at number 4, number 5?
It's amazing. I can't keep track of this year's top five draft. Like by now, it should be. I should have this by heart. It's like the
Yes.
Titans, and then it's the Browns, and then it's the. See, I already get tripped up. I think the Giants are fourth.
Yes. Yeah, they're fourth in a 2 quarterback draft. And if you're the Giants, go if you think Cam Ward is the guy, and listen, if you're the Giants, if you're Joe Shane and you're Brian Dable, you need to come out of this with a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
This is how you preserve your job. This is how you open some sort of window in terms of keeping your job. And the roster is set up with a second-year wide receiver, a second-year running back. You can continue to build the offensive line in free agency. Get the quarterback now, and maybe you start showing signs of growth. I'm with you. If you're the Titans, if you're the Giants, match made in heaven.
Right. And again, it sounds like the Titans are open for business. They recognize the value of this. I could see a package where the Giants take the number 4 overall pick and Thibodeau and next year's number 1 and try to put a little bouquet on that to send it over. And the Titans want to build through like the offensive line. The Giants have had a bad offensive line for years. Titans are worse right now.
Right.
Titans, I think, have a worse offensive line, even though they have some first round picks there. They're all like guards and they don't have anything at tackle. So I think we're going to see something. We're not going to see something today, tomorrow, the next day, but we'll probably be seeing some news come out of like around free agency in 2 weeks, where one of these blockbusters. Remember how quickly the Bryce Young
Yes.
Bears
That
like
came
that
together,
like,
came together in Indy. Peter King had the column the Monday after the combine of Ryan Poles holding court in his hotel room and basically other GMs coming to kiss the ring and, make their best offer. And they made the deal like a week or 2 after the combine, it came together, but
right.
the deal was structured during this week.
Right. And that's something like that could be happening now when you've got a team that is signaling that they're open for business and that first pick is there. And again, it's like 1.5 franchise quarterbacks in the draft. Shedeur is like a franchise quarterback with a franchise headache, like built into it. And you got Cam Ward. Giants, you take Cam Ward, you've got this guy who's pretty clean overall in terms of his background, in terms of his tape, in terms of everything else like that. It's kind of surefire. The risk level is very, very low. You can sell this even if the team isn't super, super competitive as your, year to get him up to speed.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons why the Giants could take that big swing.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And we've talked a lot about the veteran quarterback market, about the incoming quarterback market, but the guys who make a living rushing the passer and getting after the quarterback. I wrote on Monday that Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett have a huge shadow over this combine for very different reasons. We'll start with Myles Garrett, Mike. You were at Andrew Berry's podium yesterday, general manager of the Browns, mayor of Indianapolis this week. Teams basically reaching out. It sounds like they've had conversations or teams have attempted to have conversations about Myles Garrett, but you asked me to make a bold prediction after our last podcast. And mine was that the Browns won't trade Myles Garrett. And I don't know about you, but listening to Barry at the podium on Tuesday, I'm more convinced the Browns aren't going to do this, that the Browns are not going to move on from Garrett this offseason.
Yeah, when you said that a couple of weeks ago, I was a little bit like, I think we're looking at brinksmanship. I think that we're, Barry was saying something because he had the luxury of saying something, 3 weeks ago about not trading him. This was a shut down the conversation. Don't call us. We're not talking about it. We're not entertaining this in the media. We want this guy to stay. A press conference, like minutes were spent, like several minutes, trying to extract anything about Garrett besides we want him to stay. We don't see any reason why we should try to trade him. We consider these trade requests part of the NFL, and they happen all the time. So, this is another one of those things where it's like, okay, well, then you'd better find the financial apology that
Right.
he's going to listen to. And first of all, he doesn't sound very amenable, but of course, everybody's amenable if you pay him enough. And then secondly, it's like, where's this money coming from? You have this much already tied up into scuzzball, and now you're going to turn around and tie more of it up with Garrett and even at an even bigger salary. And like, how are you going to pay the other 51 guys?
Right. And this sounds like Myles Garrett is motivated to get out of Cleveland to go chase rings in the twilight of his career. You're not getting that opportunity in Cleveland if you go from $25 million a year as Myles Garrett to $37 million per year, which would make him the highest paid pass rusher in the sport, which, this is where the Micah Parsons conversation comes into play. I talked to a couple agents who represent players at the very upper echelon of the pass rush position. And I was told flat out by one of those agents that the conversation doesn't start until you get to $37 million annually, which makes Micah Parsons the number one highest paid pass rusher in the league. Contract number one has to be the mission. Some other guys said it's between 30 and 32. I think the number is somewhere in the middle between 30 and 37. But if you're Myles Garrett's representatives, if you're Nicole Lynn, if you're trying to get the financial apology, as you put it, $32 million sounds like the starting point, right? Going up $7 million from where they're currently at.
Yeah, and now you mention it, that's just another conflating variable for Garrett. Because it's like, well, I need to be number one, but we don't know what Parsons is going to make. And there's anyone who understands this realizes the reality that like Jerry is just going to goof off for like the entire summer. You're not going to get clarity on this. You're not going to suddenly 2 weeks from now say, well, Micah is the highest paid defender in the NFL at this amount this year, and you can go match it. They're going to goof off and goof off and goof off. So on the one hand, I don't know what that's going to look like for the Cowboys and Micah, sounds like he's going to be patient with it, but like, patience runs out. And then you turn to Myles and it's like, okay, well, why don't we extend you for this much? It's like, that much might not look good come August. So like, how do you put these puzzle pieces in place, especially if you're the Browns? If you're the Browns, you say
Browns, and you're trying to, you need picks too, right? Because they're still trying to recoup some of the draft capital from the fallout of the Deshaun Watson trade. You're still trying to figure out what you're doing at quarterback this year with Watson likely out because of the injury and life beyond Deshaun Watson, because eventually you're gonna have to move on, because 2011, 2015, Deshaun Watson isn't walking through that door again.
He's not going
those days are over.
Right. You haven't seen a good year from this guy since 2019.
Right.
You know how long ago 2019 was. Think of how much of your life has gone by. For that entire time, Watson was some kind of criminal element, or he was holding out, or he was on the exemption list, or he was injured, or he was just flat out terrible. That part's over. But what's not over is his contract and the dead money that's going to sit on it for the next couple of years here. And that's why I don't get like for the Browns to be like, we're going to turn this into another boondoggle. We're going to make this a problem. This guy's upset. Make a couple phone calls, get the Lions and Commanders on the phone, get a bunch of first-round picks, make Myles Garrett happy, and say it's rebuilding time. Or we can put ourselves in the news as the team that always does these things these backwards ways, whose biggest name-face superstar is mad at us. I don't see how you justify going this route with this individual.
No, I totally agree. And if you're Andrew Berry and if you're the Cleveland Browns, open up the books, open up the bidding war. I would have taken the complete opposite approach at the podium. Myles Garrett is a franchise pillar. He belongs on the Mount Rushmore of the Cleveland Browns organization. He's been an upstanding citizen within our locker room and in our community. We want him to have the opportunity to go win a Super Bowl. Send your best offers. Open the bidding war. Get those 2 or 3 first-round picks. Get the wide receiver that needs a change of scenery that you think that you can develop. And then use some of those picks next year to go and get your quarterback turning the page from Deshaun Watson. But instead, the Cleveland Browns appear primed to Cleveland Brown.
It really is the contrast between this and the Stafford conversation, where everybody on the Rams is being, well, let's like sort of be mature and prudent about finding a win-win-win solution for everybody, even if it looks like it's like cataclysmic from the outside where you're going to move a quarterback or whatever. The Browns are like, let's just make this the biggest problem we can possibly make.
Right.
Let's make this the biggest, weirdest, dumbest, most counterproductive problem we can make, when the solution to it for all sides seems to be, well, we get a trade and we acknowledge that we have to do a rebuild right now because we effed it up again.
Exactly. And, one team that's in the midst of rebuilding is the Chicago Bears. And listening to Ryan Poles, the general manager, and Ben Johnson, the head coach, on Tuesday, Mike, it sounds like they're ready to go all in. It sounds like they realize that they have the 3rd most cap space in the league. They realize that they have a quarterback entering the 2nd year of his rookie contract. They have the head coach that was coveted among all other head coaches this hiring cycle. They have some nice pieces there. It sounds like when you hear Ben Johnson say things like, oh, we want to be as aggressive as the vision allows us to be. And, we want playmakers, but you can also win having 11 players playing the right way in the same way and pulling in the right direction. I don't know. It just sounds like Trey Smith, offensive guard, Kansas City. Come on down to Chicago. Hey, Cleveland. Hey, Andrew Barry. How many first-round picks to get Myles Garrett? Bring him to Chicago. You start talking about some of the top free agent wide receivers. Oh, Stephon Diggs over here. Hey, we're going to offer you a blank check. Come to Chicago and catch passes from Caleb Williams. Ashton Genty in the draft. We're going to get a playmaking running back to drop alongside Caleb Williams with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore stretching the field. Am I reading this wrong? Am I misreading the room, or the Bears sound like they're ready to throw the chips into the table?
I'm sure they're aggressive. I like some of these ideas. I like trying to wrest Trey Smith away because the Chiefs don't seem to be able to put the pieces together to keep him. I guess they've been aggressive. Haven't they been aggressive? Wasn't this year aggressive? Wasn't the you're talking about, and DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen and it's like and then Montrez Sweat. So I like the idea of doing it because again they've got the cap space. They weren't a terrible team this year. They were competitive for much of the season. I'm just not sure what aggressive means and how far it's going to get them. And also, by the way, the toughest division, I think, certainly in the NFC.
Right. I mean, they have to figure something out if you're going to overtake the Vikings, the Packers, and of course the Detroit Lions, who probably aren't going to be decimated by injuries to the degree that they were this past year.
No, it was funny, by the way, that Brad Holmes, the entire press conference, and his went on for 25 minutes. He talked through 2 sessions. It was just questions about pass rushers. And it's well, obviously you have one who's phenomenal who got hurt. So there's your one. And then they tried 6 different things with the 2. Marcus Davenport got hurt. Davenport's backup got hurt. This kid that had 7 sacks, I forget his name, a couple of years ago, just hasn't really stepped up. He kind of went backwards. They brought in an older guy at the end of the season, and now I'm blanking on who it was they brought, but he was toast. And Brad Holmes was like, "Yeah, we always want as many pass rushers as possible. You realize they're hard to get, right? It was almost at one point, no one's calling and say, hey, we've got another guy just like Aiden Hutchinson. Do you want him? It was. Right. You can actually hear Holmes getting a little frustrated. It's yeah, we're going to get as many really good players. We'd love another edge rusher on the other side. The Bears are a little bit like that too, because it's yeah, we have this. We have to get better.
Right.
you have to. Odunze has to develop, and Caleb has to develop, and the defense sort of has to coalesce there. But we'll see. Like you said, they've got money. They got money. They
got a head coach, and they seem to have a quarterback. We're going to find out. I think the year 2 leap for Caleb Williams, first year with Ben Johnson, first year in a full NFL offseason. away from the disastrous two offensive coordinators, two head coach, rookie year they had.
Right.
I was overly optimistic about the Bears going into last year, so I don't want to make that mistake again. But I do think they're one of the more intriguing situations to watch this offseason to see what kind of pieces they add with the resources they have around Caleb.
Right. I could see myself getting excited about that team with like a new blue chip on offense, even if it's a guard, and like a new blue chip on defense, and say, well, wait a minute, look at the overall talent at this. And again, the coaching stability, which was horrible last year. It was really horrible for the last 2 or 3 years in terms of the instability in Eberflus administration. And now they should have something that's going to work out better.
For sure. And whether we're talking about the Detroit Lions or the Chicago Bears or any number of teams in the NFC, the combine, it's about the workouts, it's about the player interviews with the teams, but there's also the undercurrent of the competition committee starting to weigh what they're going to address this offseason. You had the Green Bay Packers come out and they proposed the rule banning the tush push, according to The Athletic. They're the mystery team, quote unquote, that proposed that rule. You heard Raheem Morris at the podium talk about how the tush push should be banned. Sean McDermott makes some comments about how he's not a fan of the rule because of the injury factor, even though I think that maybe his ire stems from Josh Allen not quite figuring out the way to run it as effectively as Jalen Hurts has been able to run it. But what's your read on this whole situation of the tush push? Will it stay and will it or will it go?
Bunch of unimaginative coaches raising the specter of an injury that we haven't seen any evidence of the injury. I mean, I can watch it and look like, oh, that looks like it's an injury waiting to happen. Been watching it for 3 years. The only injuries were on one play by the Giants, and one of them was Bellinger tripping over his own feet on the edge of the play. I think it's going to get banned. I think it's going to get banned. And I guess that's fine because I lived 51 years of my life without the tush push. And living in Philly, we saw the culmination of that. I just think I want more imagination, not less. And I hate this mentality of, well, here's something that we don't know what to do about and like wasn't taught to us by like our dads and our coaches. So let's just ban it. I don't know if that's the right approach.
No, and I'm with you there. And if the NFL has injury data that X amount of defenders are exponentially more likely to get injured going up against this play, release the data. Let people see why it's happening, why it's risky. But I think, Mike, the reality is the Eagles figured out a way to leverage building the best offensive line in football, pairing it with a 6'1", 223-pound quarterback, and designed a play where they were able to convert 39 of 48 tush pushes for either first downs or touchdowns this year on the way to a Super Bowl win. And you have teams around the league that are saying, we can't stop this. So the only way to do it is to get rid of it. And I agree with you. I don't think that that's a way to operate as a league. I don't think that that's a way to operate as opposing teams. Find your own ways to innovate and leverage your personnel in a way that makes you difficult to beat. And I'm not just saying this as somebody who, grew up an Eagles fan. I'm not saying this as somebody who still watches a lot of Eagles games. Figure out a way to use your personnel to beat teams in new ways. Don't take away or target the ways that other teams are doing it.
Did you say it was 39 out of 48?
Yes.
Like for a conventional sneak, the numbers would probably be like 36 out of 48.
Right.
Like we're talking about like it's some kind of Madden money play or something like that. It's if they just ran the sneak properly, most teams would be getting this. But like these coaches are too smart to run the sneak, including McDermott, who first of all ran tush pushes during the year. Then started doing Josh Allen is going to take 2 steps to his left and plunge. And that's, there's no way anybody's going to be able to load up when we do the exact same thing every time. So just I don't know. I'm stammering at it because it's just exasperating. And I'll tell you this. So there's a couple of guys. You watch Penn State. So, Penn State's got a tight end who runs like his own little tush push.
Tyler Warren. Yep.
Tyler Warren. Now, we didn't get to interview him today because there was a delay and guys had to go back for extra medicals. Ole Miss has a defensive tackle named JJ. I think it's Pegas, 315-pound refrigerator Perry-sized guy who doesn't just run like the sneak, but he takes the shotgun snap like he's in Wildcat and charges full speed at the line. and sometimes make spin moves before he. So I want you to ban the tush push, NFL, and then I went to Eagles to go get this kid JJ from Ole Miss, and put him in the backfield. Maybe put Jalen Carter in front of him at fullback,
Right.
and then they can run a Cam Newton quarterback sneak right at you, and we'll see how healthy that is. I mean, that
Right.
sounds
When
wrong
you look
because
at teams around the league, what you could wind up doing is take a defensive tackle and in practice, dedicate some practice reps to taking snaps. If you
yeah,
can take the snap, you can run a quarterback sneak. And whether
yeah.
it's the push and pushing guys, what's different in that type of a play versus a 337-pound, defensive tackle taking the snap and quarterback sneaking? What is the difference there?
Here's the trick. Now you probably know you stood enough practice. It is almost unheard of to practice the sneak.
Right.
Teams
Right.
don't want to practice the sneak because it is heavy contact, heavy hitting. They'll run it at half speed or something like that, so everybody knows what sort of gap to, and they'll be like tapping each other in shells. They don't want to run it because it's a heavy duty contact drill. So it's like that's all sneaks.
Yeah.
All sneaks are this thing. So like they probably wouldn't want to run it too often in practice, but that's the problem with the play. It's almost like, well, it's a dangerous play. Well, so is every play in football. We either talk about
Established
it
that
and
it's a dangerous sport. We've established that a
yeah,
while
we've,
ago, right?
we've established it. We've established it. Yes. Go play it. If you can't stop a play, then get better at coaching.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And Mike, before we get out of here, I know that you have a really fun series that you're starting to button up. That this week is a lot of gathering the intel and the information for. You teased it in the column, which I loved reading. Walk through on Monday, the kind of behind the scenes of how you put your draft coverage together. Everybody should go read that out. But tell me about the Two Deep 96. What
Two
is
deep
it?
90.
How's it coming? And when can we expect it?
Okay, so Two Deep 96. A lot of people do scouting reports. I'm not doing scouting reports. I'm doing more like profiles. There'll be scouting type stuff in there. I'm not a scout. I'm too old to pretend I'm a scout. I can watch film. I know a lot of what I'm looking at. We're going to be looking at the guys, looking at them statistically, trying to get them in their own words, try and go back and look at interesting moments from their career and things like that. And I'm doing 96 of them because that's 3 rounds of the draft. Now, it might wind up being 104 of them because there's supplemental picks, but I had to pick a number, and it's going to be
Nice.
the Two Deep 96. And it's going to be in March, obviously. We're going to get it out there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And one of the things that allows me to do here is just go up and talk to the kids a little bit and just get anything simple about something about them or something about like the key moments of their career, things like that, to add to these things so that I'm not just out there pretending that I watched 14 games on each of these guys and like know everything about where their elbow is supposed to be when they're pass rushing.
Right. And I think that's what's great about the Two Deep Zone. It's not just the nuts and bolts scouting report analysis that you might get from Pro Football Focus and all those sort of things. But, I'm finding out about the kid who grew up in Arkansas and ate duck and rice. Like I'm finding out about the kid who raised wild horses. I'm
Yes,
finding out about the kid who, didn't play football until he was 15 years old and a scout
yes,
happened to see him. Yeah, that's what I come to the Two Deep Zone to read, in addition to the contextualizing of what happens in games across the league. And I think the Two Deep 96 is going to be a lot of fun.
thank you very much. And yeah, the rice and duck thing, that's actually going to run, I think, on Monday, where you're going to learn all about rice and duck. The best part of it, I'm just going to share this with you and listeners right now, is the young man David Walker from Central Arkansas was starting to talk about. He said, we're the rice and duck capital of the world. Now, first of all, when you say those syllables, rice and duck, like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily realize he's talking about, rice and duck, is he's talking quickly and he just says that. So I was like, rice and duck, what's that? And he's like, well, rice, like the food, and then like ducks, like the birds that fly. And I think like this is this is great. He thinks he's talking to a sundowning, dementiated old man who wandered up here and doesn't know what rice or ducks are, and he's trying to politely explain it to me. But then he actually went into a little bit more about rice, about ducks. I'm sorry.
Are you going to eat? Are you going to eat some rice and duck? Will there be photographic evidence of rice and duck in the column?
I don't I don't think I can get duck anywhere around here without paying like $60.
Yeah.
And I've had duck. I'm not a huge duck eater. But I might grab some old Scrooge McDuck cartoons and put them in the.
I love it.
We'll get a little, okay, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. We'll do the whole thing.
That's
Maybe I'll
awesome.
see if I can find them eating rice somewhere in DuckTales.
Can't
It will
wait
be
to
a duck
check it out.
blur. Yes.
Can't wait to check it out. Before we get out of here, 5-star review time on Apple Podcasts from SM Larson MSU. So SM Larson SMU checks in 5 stars. Matt and Mike provide solid analysis and offer granular insights seldom heard on national football podcasts. Mandatory for NFC East and NFL fanatics.
That's phenomenal. Granular.
Yeah.
We're getting granular. So is MSU at the end? You think it's a Michigan State guy?
Could be. SM
Montana
Larson SMU.
SMU or MSU?
MSU, Michigan State.
MSU. So maybe he's a well, go Spartans, if that's accurate.
And go Lions. I'm sure he's a Lions fan. A substantial portion, a peek behind the curtain, Mike, a substantial portion of Between the Hashmark subscribers hail from the great state of Michigan.
That's phenomenal. I guess because we were so up on them up until the time that everyone stopped being up on them, including themselves.
Yes, sir. Hey, what do we have coming up on Two Deep Zone? What's next out of the combine?
End of the week, or actually it will be Monday, will be the 40 awards, in which we do the Oscars of the combine. And then, I got to work on this 96, so there'll be something along the way. But like you, both of us, we're going to be in free agency preparation mode. And speaking of which, what do you got? You're going team by team right now, right?
I'm going team by team. When you wake up and listen to this tomorrow on Thursday, it will be how the New Orleans Saints walk through salary cap hell. Then we have the Chicago Bears coming down the pike, which I cannot wait to lean into.
That's good.
Weighing the viability of adding on a free agency preview series for the first week of March on top of the team-by-team previews. We'll see how ambitious I can get.
You do not need sleep or any time with your children. Help me real quick, though. How will the Saints walk through salary cap hell? I'm burning cold.
You have to figure out a way to wait to trade Derek Carr until after June 1. So if you can do that, you're freeing up $40 million. They're $52 million over the cap. But Kat Terrell of ESPN did a tremendous offseason primer, and she pointed out that there are 6 players over the age of 30 that if they move on from all 6, get rid of them all, you're freeing up $140 million in cap space. So take a hatchet and then trade Derek Carr.
Those 6 are Carr, Taysom Hill, Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, and probably the Honey Badger, which means they're the 6 best. That's the 6 best guys on the team. Got
to rebuild. Tear it down to the studs. What else are you going to do? You're $52 million over the cap. You can only move money so far, so many times. The guy led with it. You can only kick the can down the road until it hits the wall of consequences. And here you are. You've reached the wall if you're the Saints.
Sometimes you kick the can and sometimes the can kicks you. I love it. Oh, my God.
He's Mike Tanier. He's in Indianapolis. Make sure you follow him on Blue Sky at Mike Tanier. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Matt Lombardo, or I'm on Threads at Matt Lombardo NFL. Subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. Subscribe to the Between the Hashmarks on Substack, and check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all those fun places. Mike, make sure that you have a quality beer for me while you're out there, please.
I am making arrangements. I will not be able to go to the Sun King meetup because the schedule did not work out. But Steve from Sun King is going to find me and Doug Farrar and a couple others, and we're going to have a quality beverage tomorrow night.
Cannot wait. Enjoy the combine, and Mike, we'll talk to you next week.
Take care, man.